Hello, everyone out there in podcast land. Welcome to the Front Row Movie Reviews, the podcast for people who actually like movies and TV. And welcome to another episode of Discovering Star Trek, where we talk about Star Trek. And for the most part, we have been talking about Star Trek Discovery. That's going to be changing pretty soon because we only have 2 episodes left after this. But we are here to talk about what is past is Prologue. I am Scott, and with me is...
And this is Blake.
And Mike tragically never built up any immunity when he was a child, so he continues to be sick. Either that or like any bad date, he's still washing his hair. So we expect Mike to come back, one day. Until then, it's just Blake and I. And Kevin is, he could not go through the agony of watching another Star Trek Discovery episode. So he did not join us either. So it's just Blake and I today. So let's go ahead and talk about, at least for the time being, our last trek into the Mirror Universe. Blake, give me your first impressions on what is past is Prologue.
So first impressions are, I do like the episode. I think it nicely wrapped up the Mirror Universe. And I'm glad they got out of it now. I think they kept the Mirror Universe till the end of this series. Kind of what you've been saying is it can get old in a hurry. So I'm glad they went ahead and got out of there. Maybe not necessarily happy with where they went back to, but I do like that they bailed out of the Mirror Universe when they did. I liked how they wrapped up Lorca and then threw him through the hole in the floor. So, everything you're disliking about characters from season 1 is going to be fixed in season 2, one way or the other.
I'm going to not bury the lead. And I said this to the guys in the chat before we got started. This is the best episode of the series so far for me. And that includes the pilot. It includes everything that's happened so far, because and again, I won't talk about the last 2 minutes for a while. I'm just going to ignore the last 2 minutes, because if I let the last 2 minutes jade me right now, I won't have a good time. So I'm just going to ignore the last 2 minutes. They took everything that I have asked them and basically did it. As you just mentioned, we jettison the Mirror Universe, and we do it in a very fun way that leaves some openings. Like, I don't think Lorca's dead. I think he's in the mycelial thingamajigger, but whatever, because you don't let Jason Isaacs off a contract that easy. But also, this was the first episode where we got to see the crew of the Discovery be a Star Trek crew. And I'll talk more about that in a bit, but everything was clicking for this episode, and I enjoyed everything about it until the last 2 minutes. Okay. So let's talk about things we liked. So not the last 2 minutes. Blake, what are some things you liked about this episode?
So one of the things I really liked on this episode, and you already touched on it, is the crew finally felt like a Starfleet crew in this one. And I will say, I'm starting to like some of the characters in this one. And that's a common thought we've all had is, some of these characters we've not been able to invest into them. I think Tilly, despite my initial concerns about Tilly as a character, because I think I said in one of the early ones of these that, my God, it's Wesley Crusher 2.0. And I think with Tilly now is developing probably into one of my favorite characters on the show. Anthony Rapp's character's developed along, and Saru is actually turning into a really likable character too. So I like that they're finally moving the characters to where we want to see them. And I kind of think, I went back and was reading some of the early press on the show, and one of the comments they made was, this was going to be about discovering the Federation we knew in the original series. And I think they're moving there. I think they're connecting that dot finally from what we started with to where we're at now. Mm-hmm. So I liked that part. I did like the Mirror Universe wrap up with the whole coup and seeing Burnham try to fight fight to save Giorgio and ultimately tackling her into the transporter. Can't let her off contract either.
No, I mean, you don't get Michelle Yeoh and you don't get Jason Isaacs and you put them on for a few episodes. You just don't do it. They're on contract. Obviously, Michelle will be back next week. Isaacs will be back in season 2 when they need a big bad. And I think this is how it's going to go. One of 2 reasons. Either we still don't know if if Lorca from the regular timeline is dead or not. He may be somewhere. Or, again, he didn't burn up. We didn't see him die. We saw him looked almost like a transport, not like
Yeah.
a human transport, but almost it reminded me of the Red Skull at the end of Captain America: First Avenger, when they actually thought that Hugo Weaving was going to want to come back as the Red Skull,
Hmm.
and they made him evaporate. Now Hugo Weaving will never do that character again, so we don't have the Red Skull anymore. But that's why they did it. He disappeared into the ether. Lorca did the same thing. So I
Well,
don't think Lorca's dead.
and I would agree with that too. And going back to the episode with Harry Mudd when they were on the Klingon ship, and Mudd was talking about him killing his own crew. I could almost see in there that maybe Mudd knew more about who and what Lorca was than maybe the rest of us did.
I can see that.
And if that was indeed the case, then yeah, that definitely sets Jason Isaacs up to be back as the big bad again.
Well, and he says when he gets this crew out of the agony booths, which they were in the agony booths for over a year and a half. That's a lot of agony. So he was in our universe for a year and a half. So when did his ship get taken out in our timeline? Did we ever get? I'm looking at the chat room guys too. Did we ever figure out how long ago he transferred over Discovery after he let his crew die?
Let's not talk timelines. That's one of those things about this show that's doing the ever-loving hell out of me.
Well, yeah. Well, the reason why I'm asking though is, was it Mir Lorca who did it, or was it Prime Lorca, or whatever you want to call it, that did it? And that makes a difference, I think, too, in just the narrative of it. But I'm sure, like I said, Lorca will be back one way or the other. So things I liked about this episode, I agree with you fully. And the chat room is praising Captain Saru, and I completely agree with this. I still think Captain Saru should be in the brig, but I'm going to ignore that episode now. And he did everything right. This is when we saw him. This is a perfect arc for Saru. When we saw him at the beginning, he was scared of everything. He was scared of his own shadow. Not to mention that he was also scared of his ability to lead, and to a point where he was being judgmental on himself and trying to ape other major captains in the Federation because he didn't feel he could make his own way. And we see in that scene in the Spore Drive Engineering, whatever the hell it is, lab, that's him. I mean, he gave the leadership speech that worked, and he did everything right. He made the right calls. He did everything right. And I'm going to be very, very pissed when we get Captain Burnham, because that's what's going to happen. But I am 100% team Captain Saru, so that's what I want. This was the first time the robot talked, and I point that out because this is the first time the bridge crew of the Discovery got to be a bridge crew and got to have input. Even the girl who's been around since the pilot, who has the cybernetic implants after she got blown up in the Shinzu, had something to do. Everyone had something to do. And it's because, for one, you took some players off the field, so you gave them time to shine. When Burnham's not on the Discovery, other people can have fun on the Discovery. But also, it was a shift by the writers to make this more of Star Trek. And they've been kind of hitting on this for the past couple episodes, is they always point out this is not what the Federation does. The Federation and Starfleet is better than this. We are better than these people. And obviously they're going to hit on that again based on the trailer we had for the next episode. But finally, they're actually showing instead of telling. They're showing what Starfleet does, and I really appreciated that. And another thing I liked about this episode is this is the first episode in any I've been watching on Discovery where I actually had a moment where I audibly said hell yes, and that was when Saru said fire. Yeah. That was amazing. I was like, that was perfect. They mapped it out. They figured out where Burnham was on the ship, so they didn't shoot right there. They were ready to go. I mean, everything worked like clockwork. That's what I want to see in a well-written show, and I was very happy about that. Is there anything else, Blake, that you have before I go rambling?
I think that kind of covers it for the good parts. I mean, all in all, that the first 40 minutes of a 43-minute episode, I think, were great for all the reasons you've touched on. I've touched on already with it. You're right. The ship scenes on it, seeing the Discovery in action this time, all of it worked. So now to see what they can do with it for the next 2 episodes and beyond.
I love the fact that they pulled the rug out from under us a couple times. One, I was theorizing that our Stamets is switched, but obviously right away when bad Stamets gasses everybody, you knew that wasn't the case. But I like the fact that Stamets is off the board now. You assume that was going to be another nemesis for, for later times, but no, they just blown him away. And they didn't even give him a chance to fall into his spore drive. And that's another reason why I still think Lorca's alive, because Stamets went out a different way. And I like Lorca's obsession with Burnham. I don't think it's earned because, again, I think Burnham is a weak character, although she was stronger in this episode than she ever has been. So if they continue moving her along those lines, I'll be happier with her. But the fact that Lorca is so obsessed with this girl that he sliced his own first officer or whatever she is to make sure that she doesn't kill Burnham. The obsession there is very interesting, and I like that. And I think it gave Isaacs more to play with than he's had in this character for a lot of the show. He's able to choose some scenery, which I think went well. I'm just kind of breezing through the chat real quick before we move on. Yeah, Creeper says, I was expecting them to overshot by a lot, like 150 years. I was thinking that too. I was thinking they're going to reset a timeline. We're going to have the Prime timeline, the Kelvin timeline, and the Discovery timeline or something. But we'll talk about the last 2 minutes here, I'm sure. But I think we're going to have a big old reset button here coming pretty soon. Speaking of the last 2 minutes and anything else, Blake, what are some things you didn't like about the episode?
How about we just start with the last 2 minutes?
Please, let's bitch about the last 2 minutes.
Let's just bitch about the last 2 minutes. So this goes back to what we've been saying all along. When Discovery went into the Mirror Universe and kind of jettisoned this whole war with the Klingon storyline, one, the war had no scope or scale. I think the last count we were given, there was like 8,600 people is what they were saying. There was no scope or scale to this war that, keep in mind, we hear nothing about in 10 years. Mm-hmm. When we've got Kirk and Spock out there encountering Klingons who, by the way, don't bring this up, mm-hmm. and neither does anybody in Starfleet.
And I don't want to make this political, but we have lost more people in Afghanistan and Iraq than they have lost in the Klingon Federation war to this point. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it. I mean, there's no scope or scale or reality to this. And then all of a sudden, Discovery jumps back in. Oh, we're here we overshot by 9 months. And then we get into that preview for next week. And 20+% of Federation space is overran. You're getting no responses from Starfleet. The war is lost. Like, what the hell?
Mm-hmm. And that map didn't...
Again, for something we've not heard about 10 years after this.
And I know they were going for shock value showing that map, but that map was not 20%. No. That map was like 99% Klingon. There was one little Starfleet emblem, which I'm assuming is freaking the Sol system, was left, and that's it. So when she comes on the preview and says 20%, I'm like, well, that was a bait and switch right there. You guys are trying to make us feel, like something really bad's happening, but you could almost make that 20%. The Federation was bigger than what it was in TOS, and that 20% was lost and became the neutral zone. So, it's actually back to TOS size. You could play that game, and then you wouldn't have to reset. But yeah, no, I'm tired of the Klingon fight. I've said this from the beginning. If this was a fight against the Tholians or something, I would have been okay with it. But because we know so much about the Klingons, and we know that there's going to be a Cold War in 10 years, and no one's going to discuss the facts that there's one discussion, and it is in one episode, and it's the episode that has spawned so many lawsuits, and that is they talk about the Battle of Axanar when they talk to Garth of Istar, or Izar, whatever his name is, mm-hmm. Garth. That's it. It's one battle. It's not a freaking war. And what I imagine, I told Blake this before we went live, I'm thinking back to Insurrection, when Riker had the little joystick pop up in the middle of the bridge, and he got to fly the Sovereign class. I'm expecting this big old reset button to appear in front of the captain's chair, and Saru in 2 episodes just smacking it, and everything just resets. It's going to be a Voyager episode like any other Voyager episode, and I'm disappointed in that, because I hope they prove me wrong, but I'm disappointed in that because they are doing so many things right the last few episodes that I'm hoping they don't screw it up here in the last 2. I know we're going to have a reset of some sort, because Season 2 is not going to be the same story. It will be the Discovery. It will be mostly the same crew, but it's going to be a different story.
Minus, the half they've knocked off at various points throughout this season.
Exactly. But so no matter what, we're going to get a reset. It's just a matter of how big a reset are we going to get, and time travel makes resets even more. Ugh. But yeah. Ugh.
Yeah, and I think the one other thing I'd add on the dislike part, and I think Creeper touched on it a bit in the chat, was the fight scene, that last fight scene they had in the throne room. The choreography, the cinematography, something on that just seemed off at times.
Yeah.
And I can't quite put my finger on it, but Creeper's right on that part. Something just seemed off. Either the choreography, the cinematography, something there didn't work.
Yeah, Creeper is also saying, because Creeper is very much active in the chat tonight, is also saying it would have been great if we would have had the motion picture Klingon theme, Jerry Goldsmith Klingon theme, when the map was being taken over by the Klingons. And I'm responding to him, and he'll see this in 7 seconds, that they lost the Klingon theme along with the D7 ship designs when they started doing this show.
They spent too much on new makeup and couldn't afford the copyright.
Oh, God, that new makeup. Oh, God. They showed frickin' Laurel in the trailer again. I'm like, oh, good. Klingons are back. Yay. Ugh. So, on the fight scene, I agree with you. There was a lot of fun, though, because one of the things with the Mirror Universe is you can do things that Star Trek can't do. You can have BDSM Kira Nerys having fun through an entire episode. You can have Georgiou blasting a guy through the head with a plasma rifle, which is awesome to watch. I mean, I'm all for optimistic Star Trek, but that was badass. So there was some really fun things. I also liked the strategy being used to take the throne room, but I agree. The last fight scene where everyone had to square off against their other person and take each other out was a little long. And it gave me another reason to somewhat dislike Burnham. And as I know I bash on Burnham a lot, but we have spent this entire episode talking about the better graces of Starfleet and how Starfleet is good. And Lorca tries to do the opposite and say, you guys are slaves to this cult of the Federation, and it will always be your downfall because diversity is a downfall. Equality is a downfall. So we're getting this dichotomy in this discussion. And then Burnham points out, I'm not going to kill you because I'm better than that. And then obviously the Emperor takes him out. But then she's okay with that. I get the saving the Emperor. She's got some connections with Georgiou, and it kind of shows that we're not going to let anyone die, even though we just blasted the shit out of everybody in the throne room. But Burnham, again, makes a poor decision. That bringing her on board is only going to cause trouble. And Burnham is always a plot device that annoys the hell out of me. But again, I will say this was the strongest episode for Burnham because she actually was involved in the action. She actually had something to do, and for the most part, she made the right decisions. So, which is something Burnham usually doesn't do.
Yeah, and I'd agree with that. And I also kind of appreciated this time there wasn't the whole. I mean, Saru seemed to accept working with her this time. There kind of wasn't that whole, how dare you get to, have been mentored by Georgiou and I didn't type attitude that was in the first couple episodes of them together. So I appreciate that was gone too. They seem to work really well together. So I think they've improved the character dynamics there too.
Mm-hmm. No, and I'm nitpicking on what I'm saying here. I mean, we'll talk about when we get into our predictions about the last 2 minutes again, but for most of this episode, and I'm seeing our viewers tick up, so you didn't catch the beginning of this, most of you. This was a very good episode, and it was the most Star Trek that I've seen Discovery be. And if we can continue to have this bridge crew and this Discovery crew act like they did, I even like Stamets in this episode. Mm-hmm. Stamets was doing okay, and we actually had an arc for Stamets. He went from the gruff prick scientist that only likes mushrooms to letting Tilly be the one to claim victory on the fact that she figured out how not to get everyone killed. In the beginning of the show, Stamets would have called up the bridge and said, I figured it out. He let the cadet do that because he's starting to not be a prick. And it's part of it is because Hugh gave him some humanity. And
Mushroom
also,
Hugh did.
well, yeah, but I still claim that it's I mean, string theory and all that is weird. But yeah, I mean, Mushroom Hugh, sure, gave him some humanity, but also I think his interactions with his evil self and with the mushrooms and being on his little high for a while has made him a different character, and I'm okay with the growth and all things, so I'm fine with that. Yeah, Cynthia also points out too there was more dynamics between the crew. Saru called Michael his friend. When we even saw in the little trailer before this, the previously on, that a few episodes ago, Saru wouldn't even take coordinates from Michael because he didn't trust her at all, and he wanted the coordinates from Lorca. So we're seeing an evolution here in the crew that I think is going to lead to a much stronger show up until when Burnham sits in the command chair and I get pissed off again.
I will say that is one little thing that irked me, and it's a nitpicky thing, but we went from Saru not even wanting the coordinates from Burnham to, sure, we trust you, Lorca's the mirror, Lorca.
Yeah, that went a little too quick, but I'm okay with it because it got us out of there. I was expecting this not to be the last Mirror Universe episode. When I went in, when they said, what is past is prologue, I even said this last week, I figured this was going to be entirely a flashback telling us how Lorca got to where he was. It wasn't. We got that in the first 5 minutes. I'm okay with that. But I was assuming we were going to have another episode in the Mirror Universe. So when all this is happening, I expected to draw out more. So when they condense the time and just say, okay, we believe you, I'm okay with that because it gets us the hell out of the Mirror Universe. Now, I may say differently next week when I see what happens in future time, but so far, so good. Anything else you want to say negative about this episode before we move into our scores and predictions?
No, I think we covered the last 2 minutes in detail.
Okay, so before we talk about predictions, let's go ahead and talk about scoring. So we rank these episodes on a scale of 1 to 10, and we compare them to other episodes in the Star Trek franchise. So 5 would be an average episode of Star Trek, 10 would be in the Pale Moonlight, and 1 would be my go-to. Well, I'll say Code of Honor this time. 1 would be a Code of Honor. So on a scale of Code of Honor to in the Pale Moonlight, Blake, where do you put what is past his prologue?
Well, if that's the scale we're using, good Lord. That's not a 10-point scale. There's some negative numbers in on that one. I would put this one at a solid 8.5.
Cool. Yeah, no,
it was one of the best. If I could shut out the last 2 minutes, and that part, no.
I think the last 2 minutes is for the new episode.
Everything leading up to that, this was the best episode of the season, hands down.
Yeah. No matter if I like Discovery when this is all said and done or not, I will go back and probably watch the Mirror Universe arc, which is, I'm assuming, what we're going to call it from here on out, because it was a fun 3 or 4 episodes, and it culminates in a very strong episode. Much like I would say season 3 and 4 of Enterprise. I will never go back and watch season 1 of Enterprise again. I just don't need to. But I just started watching from the last episode of season 2, which is The Expanse, and now I'm watching season 3 again just because I'm bored. So I'll be doing the same thing with this, and that's why this is an extremely strong episode, not only for Discovery. And again, I already said I think this is the best episode of Discovery so far. So I don't remember what I scored everything else. I don't think I've given a 9 yet, so I'm going to give it a 9. I think it's a very, very good Star Trek episode, and it's one of those where I will go back and watch again, because I really, truly enjoyed it. And again, there's not many times where I get a hell yeah moment where I fist bump or pump my fist in the air, and when Saru yells fire, that was worth a 9 right there. So I give it a 9. Creeper gave it a 9. So I'm in good hands there. So let's talk about, and John says, holy crap. Surprise, John. Hey,
we could give it an honorary Kevin score just so we have that third score. I'm sure
Kevin gives it a 3.
Wow, Kevin got charitable.
He gave last episode a 3, I think.
Okay, so yeah, I'd say he might give it a 3.
John's playing the lottery. If buy me a ticket, buddy, we'll split 50-50. Actually, you know what? I'm generous. We'll split 60-40. It's fine.
Is Illinois paying the lottery again?
Yeah, we have a budget.
Just wondered.
At least until June 30, we have a budget. Okay. Let's talk about predictions. Obviously, we're going to talk about, there's 2 more episodes left in this season. The first thing I want to talk about, and I don't know, I'm assuming you caught it because they beat you over the head with it for a few seconds. What is the little green thing that goes into Tilly's shoulder?
Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
Is Tilly one with the mushrooms now?
Is that what we're calling it? One with the shrooms? At
first, I was thinking more romantically that was Hugh leaving, and then that was going to be the last little speck we see disappear. And I'm like, oh, okay. No, it just goes into her shoulder blade. I don't know what the hell that is.
Well, that landed on Stamets, maybe.
Yeah, that would make sense, and it just kind of dissipates into him. But Tilly's been taken over by some spores, so I don't know what the heck's going on there. Anyone in the chat room have any idea what Tilly's doing with her green spore? I'm like,
I really got nothing to follow up green spores with. I mean,
what kind? She is Irish.
Well, oh, John Shaner, Hugh is coming back. Does that mean he grows? John, I'm curious. Does that mean Hugh grows out of Tilly's shoulder? I mean, where are we going with that one there, John?
We've had the split guys with the black and the white. Now we're gonna have Tilly and Hugh.
Tilly and Hugh, yeah.
That makes for an interesting date for Stamets right there.
Yeah. So no, I would think that's going to be something, because I think the one thing we've seen in the series is they don't waste shots like that.
No.
I'm still waiting for the one going back earlier. Those black Starfleet badges, they showed up.
Creeper just called it Tilly's little friend.
I just saw that.
I'm calling it from now on. We will be waiting until Tilly's little friend comes back.
That's the comment of the night right there.
God.
But, I think prediction-wise, we're going to see those black badges come back that we saw in the first Discovery episode that was on Discovery.
Yeah.
I think that's going to come back into play somewhere, because they've proven very good. They're not wasting those establishing shots of things. I'm with you, though. At some point, there's going to be a giant reset button appear somewhere. What form that's going to take, what that's going to look like, I don't know. Whether it's they connect and tap back into the mycelium network or whatever, there's a reset coming, and I would not be surprised if most of the events of this season never happened.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to go that far. I think there's going to be a reset, without a doubt. And the 2 things that are going to reset is obviously the last 9 months and the spore drive. Mm-hmm. Now, the spore drive may not be we're going to erase it from existence, but it's going to be we have to repair the mycelial network, and to do that, we have to kill our spore drive, and that will reset the timeline, and we'll go back 9 months, and we'll never talk about spore drives again, or something like that. And the war is going to end at the end of this episode, because I think they have learned, and partially I think this writer's room didn't want it to begin with, that they don't want this Klingon war to go on anymore. So I think that will be done by the end of this season, and we'll actually start, Star Trekking.
And one possible way to wrap this up, too, even if they just erase most of what happened after the pilot, you can easily go back and write this in where they've called it the Battle of Binary Stars. What they've never established is what's near binary stars. You could easily sit there and say this was the reference Battle of Axanar on the Klingon side.
Could be. Could very well be.
You could write it that way. You could do that.
Well, in the other reset, I will say, no matter what, is Burnham's court-martial will be wiped out by the end of this season. Yeah. She'll be a Starfleet officer again. Either because the court-martial never happened, or the Admiral will realize that she, has paid her dues and she can no longer be a traitor or whatever. I don't know. But for me, there's definitely going to be some kind of reset. I don't think they're going to go that far back. I do think they'll reset the last 9 months, and that will wipe out the spore drive in some way. Claire, just because I've had this confusion from other people too, it's episode 14 for us because we did an episode on Orville. Because Claire's yelling at me because this is episode 13 and not 14. Once we start doing other Star Trek episodes outside of Discovery, our episode numbering will be nowhere near what Discovery's episode numbering is. So I apologize for that, but we did an episode of Orville because Orville is a better show. So I wanted to do an episode on it.
Well, it's our show. We'll number it how we damn well please.
With your Go to Hell cup. Claire, please be sure to subscribe if you have not done so already. We appreciate your comments. Yeah, so I think they'll reset the last 9 months. Along with that, I think they're going to beat over our heads again, the whole what is the Federation? And I'm kind of worried about that because the last time we had that, it was a little movie called Into Darkness, and it was probably the worst Star Trek film ever. I think it's worse than Star Trek V. I freaking hate Into Darkness.
Well, and I tried it even before that. It was Insurrection. Insurrection sucked because they tried beating our heads over our heads with that in Insurrection, and it didn't.
Fully agree, but Insurrection doesn't make me puke in my mouth, and Into Darkness does. Yeah.
You mean Star Trek II rewrite?
Gone. The fact that Nicholas Meyer didn't sue for a writer's credit on Into Darkness is pretty impressive because I would have. And if Harv
Bennett didn't have one.
Well, Harv Bennett's dead. But if he was alive, he should have sued too.
Yes.
But and now everyone's yelling at me because I said Orville's a better show. Sorry, it is. Sorry. Oh, and Cosmos is coming back.
I saw that.
I'm very happy about that.
We might have to do one of these for Cosmos.
Oh, I love Cosmos. Both the Sagan and the DeGrasse Tyson ones. Both of them are great. So, where am I? They've been beating us over the heads with this, and so we're going to have the Emperor Georgiou is going to give us the opportunity to question our motives and say, if we really want to win this war, we're going to have to give up our prime directives, our Starfleet optimism, and just get in the trenches, which has happened before. We've done, I mean, I just mentioned in the Pale Moonlight, but I think I'm getting tired of this theme, and I hope it ends by the end of the season because I get that. And you already said, the writers said that this was about discovering what Star Trek is and discovering what the Federation is. I've discovered it. It was what Saru and the crew did in this episode. We can move past that now. Let's
found it. Let's go.
Let's start moving forward. And so because Kurtzman was obviously really involved in Into Darkness, I'm feeling like this next episode is going to be Into Darkness again. And aside from the Super Triple Blood and the Khan references, it wasn't even a good story to begin with because, you know, the Federation made the USS Vengeance, which is twice the size of an oversized Constitution class because, well, I don't know, because we're pissed off. I don't know. I'm tired of that storyline. John is now saying Star Trek V is the worst. I will argue that Star Trek V is not the worst for one reason and one reason alone. Actually, two reasons.
You're wrong on both.
Shush. The bookend scenes. The scenes between Spock, Kirk, and McCoy on the camping, and then also in the what was 10 forward on the Constitution class. Those scenes are the best Spock, McCoy, and Kirk scenes in all of Star Trek because it shows that friendship more than any other scene they've ever been in the entire TOS, in all of the movies. That those two scenes or three scenes are amazing, and that's why Star Trek V is not the worst one. Into Darkness has
marshmallows.
We are attempting to roast a marshmallow. Yes. Into Darkness has nothing for me. I just go from 2009, which is a really fun film, to Beyond, which is one of the best Star Trek films ever, and I just ignore Into Darkness. But okay, yes, the bromance does save the day, Alejandro. You are correct. It's all about the bromance. You're right. I've completely lost everything. I like the episode, and I'm sure we have 2 more episodes where I may get cranky before we reset. Another thing I was going to say is we saw Lorca's ship for the first time. And I'm
Creeper's correcting your deck layouts, by the way.
That'd be 6 forward on the Creeper. I'm going to get it explicit off this on YouTube, but it's worth it. You ready? There we go. I would say I just lost my monetization, but YouTube's taking my monetization away too. So now to YouTube. Hey, right there. Okay. You can subscribe. Yeah, so But we saw his ship, and I was thinking to myself at the beginning of this episode when we saw his ship, God, I wish we would just have the Shinzu be the Discovery or this ship be the Discovery, because those ships look like the Federation ships and they look amazing, and I hate the Discovery. But then we saw the Discovery take out the Charon, and that was the first time I actually saw the Discovery flying through space, and I actually thought it looked like a good ship. I still hate the way the nacelles are set up, but it actually looked like a pretty badass ship. So if they continue to give me beauty shots of the Discovery like that, it will grow on me. It still is an ugly ship, but it will grow on me. Anything else, Blake, you want to add before we wrap this sucker up?
I think we've done quite enough damage to...
It's a chat room. They just get me every time. Discovery is my favorite ship in this series. Best design. Well, Creeper, sometimes you just...
Hey, hang on, Scott. We'll just bring this back for Creeper. Cheers, Creeper.
Alejandro, I am all for starship porn, as you can see behind my head. And then I also have a little Miranda class here. I'm all about starship porn. I used to play Bridge Commander a lot, and I have played a little Star Trek Online just because I want to keep building new ships. So, yeah, I'm kind of sick like that. So the starships are big for me, and Discovery, the Crossfield class, is an ugly ship. Okay, I'm done talking to the chat room now. I think I've lost half our viewers. It's fine. Okay, you can find us at thefrontrow.moviereviews.com. You can email us at thefrontrow.moviereviews@gmail.com. Please be sure to send your hate mail to thefrontrow.moviereviews@gmail.com. You can also find us on all your social media whereabouts by searching the Front Row Movie Reviews. And then also, please be sure if you're watching this YouTube version that you hit the subscribe button and you hit that notify button. As you can see, we are live here talking to our friends in the chat room.
John wants Mike back.
Yeah, Mike will be coming back once he gets past his, super flu. He's got Captain Trips or something. And
I'm not entirely sure what Creeper's into, but I'm not going to go there.
I have seen that, actually. I building starships in Minecraft.
I meant the second part of his statement.
I love Star Trek porn. Well, there was that one that came out a few years ago, and what's your never mind. Andorian slave girls, or Orion slave girls. My God, I'm losing my mind today. Orion slave girls. As I was saying, I've seen people do starships in Minecraft. There was one where somebody did a galaxy class that was immensely huge, and I don't understand how you have time in your life to do that, but more power to you. I have children, and I don't understand. So please hit that notify button so you can distract me with the chat room just like everybody else is tonight, and you can find out when we go live that way. If you're listening to the podcast version, what? That's Starship porn. Damn, autocorrect? Okay. Sure it is, Creeper. We believe you. That wasn't Freud at all. You can, if you're listening to the podcast version, please be sure to also give us a like and subscribe and a review on your podcast app of choice. I mentioned my complaint to YouTube and flipped them off already, but YouTube is removing all the small creators like us from the partnership program unless we hit a certain threshold of subscribers. So we would love to get your subscriptions. Even if you hate us, just give us a subscribe so we can continue to be partners and continue to have the extra bonus fun stuff, like getting, $100 a year to pay for our website, because that's awesome. Thanks, YouTube. I'm glad we're making you money. It's great. So again, Alejandro's spacebar is broken. I don't know. Okay. Well, Creeper, if you want to promote your stuff, seriously, send us an email, and I'll promote the shit out of it next episode. Oh, hey. There's the explicit. There we go. Okay. Well, until next time, when we flash forward into 9 months from now and the Klingons have won but only taken over 20%, whatever. I am Scott, and with me as always is...
This is Blake.
And to everyone in the chat room, thanks for distracting me. I appreciate it. I'm going to go and pass out now because I'm tired. And we're down to, we've lost half our viewers. I'm sorry. Well, until next time, Cornwall is back.
The Admiral.
Oh, the Admiral, I don't know her name, that we thought was dead, but not dead.
Admiral we thought was dead is not dead. She lived.
She lived for us, so she may come back and reset us. She is the keeper.
She's the keeper of the reset button.
Yes, she is the keeper of the reset button. All hail Cornwall. Good talk to Alejandro. Please join us again. That was fun, and I swear I won't flip you off like I flipped off Creeper, unless you deserve it. If you deserve it, then I may do it. Until next time, live long and prosper, and we'll see you on the couch. What's our email? It is thefrontrowmoviereviews@gmail.com. Thefrontrowmoviereviews@gmail.com. See ya.